Two things. First of all, they've made this announcement so many times it's worn out. Secondly, it reminds me of a Donald Trump strategy. Beat them over the head as hard as you can, and then try to work something out. But I think the whole idea of closing the armories is wrong. The building is not unsafe. Just several years, 5 years ago, we had a recital in there with the whole entire German Air Force band, Luftwaffe band. We had 800 people, 900 people in the building. Everything went great. It was perfect. Everything went well. And I do not believe it's unsafe, and I do not believe it should be condemned. Not only that, just in March, my understanding is there was a contract issued in March for $60 million to do the exterior work on the building that's not supposed to be done till 2029. And in 2019, there was another contract for $131 million for structure restoration, west wall rebuild, and I mean, these are tremendous amounts of money that the Army had committed to that building. Whether they're now withdrawing that money or not, nobody knows what's going on. The trouble is, that's the problem. Nobody knows what's going on. The Army is so secretive. They want to shut it down so they can move the budget, their operating budget, from Amherst to Halifax, where the general is and all his associates. They spent over $230 million in Halifax renovating their building, and now they're talking about closing down the Amherst Armoury. Look, we really don't know what's going on, even if the lock is on the door, and I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know for sure, but it's part of the process. I mean, all of those interested have to speak up now. We have to have our voices heard. We have to speak with one voice. We have to make sure that the government knows we don't want that building closed. It's not just a building. It's a memorial to the 486 Cumberland County soldiers that were trained in that building that went off to war and never came back. It's the only place anywhere where the 486 names are together in one place on one plaque, remembering their sacrifice to our country, to our county. And those are Cumberland County people that never came back, and it's their memorial. And we just can't let the Army do this, or whoever. I don't know if it's Canada Lands or the Army. They switch it back and forth who's making these decisions. But right now, there's supposed to be work being done on it until 2029 to upgrade it so it can be transferred. And also we have two organizations that are inquiring and making proposals on repurposing the building right now. I mean, the whole thing is crazy, but the Army they have no consideration for the history or the people or anything. They just do what they want to do, and fortunately, we've always been able to overcome them. We've always been able to find somebody that will overrule them. I mean, they've absolutely said it was closed before, and then a minister or someone would intervene and overrule them, and it has stayed open until now. So it's very discouraging, but I don't see it as the end at all.
Well, you make a very good emotional and compelling argument for not getting overly excited and worried. At the same time, people look to the Member of Parliament for the solution. As you pointed out, we don't know if it's Canada Lands or DND. We don't know who's making these decisions. They have, in fact, locked the door, and they've told the people who are in there, particularly the biggest one, of course, the museum, told them to relocate, get your stuff out of there. And, this has happened before when you were the Member of Parliament, and it got, I don't know if you could say, held off. It certainly wasn't put to rest. It was just kind of held off. You gave way to Lenore Zan. It came up again. You counseled Lenore, and she too was able somehow to hold it back. It's like the boy putting his finger in the dike kind of thing. And one wonders then, why not come to a resolution here? This is not the government. I can't imagine Prime Minister Carney getting up one morning and saying, let's close that big building in Amherst. I mean, he probably doesn't know anything about it. But
I'm sure he doesn't. No.
Yeah.
But
so, I mean, if the Prime Minister, if the Member of Parliament does not have a say in this, who does?
Well, the Army tries to prevent the member. I mean, I got thrown out of there myself. Daryl Cole was there from the Amherst Daily News, and Daryl Cole escaped with his life because they slammed the door on him, almost took his hand off. But I mean, nothing about this makes sense except they just want to get rid of it. And it's not only Amherst; there's plenty of them, and they want to get rid of the Amherst Armories, and they want to get rid of the Armories in Glasgow, and so on and so forth, and transfer the budget to Halifax because that's where the big shots are. And that's my theory, and I'm sticking with it because it makes no sense. I mean, here we're trying to. I think we're thousands of recruits short. Okay, we need thousands of recruits. So where's the recruiting officer? They closed it in Amherst, where there's a relatively high unemployment rate, and they opened it in Halifax, where there's zero unemployment rate. It's like fishing where there's no fish. Yet they closed the recruiting office in Amherst, and this is where the people are. Cumberland County has always contributed recruits through the Amherst Armories, and they closed it. And even though that's what they need, I mean, nothing about this makes sense except they want the budget in Halifax. It makes me so angry. I've been through this so many times over 30 years, and there's so many times they've said exactly what they're saying now, that they're closing it for sure. Everybody's to get out and all that stuff, but we've always been able to overcome it. Hopefully we'll be able to do it this time. But I know there's two interested parties interested in trying to redevelop it or repurpose it. And their plans, I've seen the plans. They're incredible. They're super. And they're beneficial to the community. But it takes a while time to put them together. The town has expressed in a very tangible way their support for this organization that is working on the armory repurposing, and there's actually two proposals now, or two people that are working on proposals. But the one that's furthest along has got architectural drawings for the renovations and everything, and here they go and make these announcements and kick everybody out. But the museum is totally unique. It's totally unique. There's nothing like it in the world. There's artifacts in the Amherst Military Museum that are not on display anywhere. And I'll tell you, it was such a surprise when the German Luftwaffe band came to Amherst and they went up to that museum. They saw German artifacts that they've never seen before. And these are soldiers that went in the Amherst Museum and saw German artifacts that they'd never seen before. And so it's totally unique, and if they're told to move all those artifacts, I mean, they'll get lost, they'll get broken, they'll get distributed all over the place, and most of these were brought back by Cumberland County soldiers and then donated to that armories.
And I was there on that day with the band. It was a stellar moment, a stellar piece of history itself, in a building full of history and so on. And you're right. I just wish that you'd show us a little bit of emotion when you speak, sir.
Yeah, right. No,
let me take you somewhere else then. Of all the battles you faced, you were in 7 different terms in Parliament, and that in itself is quite a story. But in that period of time, I think you became known for 4 very serious battles, and that is the recognition and understanding and promotion of Beaubassin, of Ile Haute, of the RCMP communication system, and of the Amherst Armoury. Ile Haute and Beaubassin have your blessing and are alive today because of it. The RCMP closed everything up in Truro. Every time I go down that street and see the plywood over the doors and windows, I just think of you. And now
it's just exactly the same thing. The armies did when the RCMP moved the communication center from Truro to Dartmouth. They broke every communications rule in the book for emergency services, and that's redundancy. There's 2 communication centers in Nova Scotia. One was in Truro, one was in Dartmouth. Now they're both in Dartmouth. So if something happens at Dartmouth, the whole communication system in Nova Scotia is shut down. All 911 calls, all RCMP communications, all ambulance calls are all shut down. When it was in Truro, if something happened in Dartmouth, they would just automatically switch to Dartmouth or to Truro. Or if Truro shut down, they switch it to Dartmouth. But now they're both in Dartmouth. It breaks every single rule in the book, and there are rules. They broke them because they wanted to have the money and the budget at the RCMP Center in Dartmouth.
Now that
It's
begs a
just the same
question.
thing.
That begs a question here because I talked to you a number of times about that topic, and we're talking about the Armory now in the very same vein. And you're passionate, you have logic on your side, you have alternative proposals on your side, and yet these guys just muscle forward and do what they want. What does it mean then to have a member of parliament if you can't get something logically put out that makes sense to the world?
Well, you when you were listing some of the things I was involved with, you missed one, and that was the Atlantic Accord. And when your member of parliament voted in the interest of his constituents, he got thrown out, and that was me. I mean, that's how that worked. I voted against my party in favor of my constituents, which I'm supposed to do. This is the definition of a representative. You're supposed to represent the interest of your riding, and in my case, my riding and my province. And I did that, and in seconds, I was evicted from the party. So.
And I didn't want to bring that up because I know it's a sore
my
point.
Feelings?
No, it's hard to hurt your feelings because you've got history on your side. But having said that, I think we all know that you played a very serious role in bringing Lenore Zan forward when you had decided to retire from politics once again, I might add, and then. More recently, Alana Hurtle. You had your finger in that one as well. But I'm hearing all kinds of things about Alana Hurtle's absence, about the inability to contact her in any way, shape, or form. Is this just a very slow-moving transition for a rookie, or should we be concerned? We can't seem to get our member of parliament on the phone or email or anything.
I've been talking to her already this morning about this, and but she knows how important it is, and she's been committed. I mean, she has a list of priorities, and the Amherst Armoury is one of the top issues even before this happened. But her office in Amherst has not been opened yet because now they have these ultra security issues, and they have to be approved by the Sergeant at Arms at the House of Commons, and the RCMP, and everybody has to approve the security for the new office she's going to be in Amherst. And it just takes a long time. They're probably a month away from getting into that office. So they're kind of sitting on orange crates in another office in the meantime until they get that up and running. But she is up and running. But her communications is not open yet to the way it will be soon. But I'm confident that she'll do a good job. I'm confident that she'll speak up and she will be not intimidated by authorities. I'm confident.
Well, you can give her my phone number, and I think you can tell her, too, she need not be intimidated by me.
Right. Well, if you read my blog, I'm writing a blog now, as I mentioned. It's BillCasey.com and hit blog. And just a couple of days ago, I wrote about the Bill Casey 3 rules of dealing with government.
I saw that.
And do you remember what number 1 rule was?
You know what? I read all of them at the same time, not the rules. I read all the blogs and went through your site the first time in there. So I kind of did fire hose of input. So I can't remember all the detail.
Rule number 1, I've only got 3 rules. Rule number 1 is nothing makes sense. It always applies. It doesn't matter whether you're applying for a disability pension or a grant for a wharf, or to keep the armories. Nothing makes sense because there's always a hidden agenda that you never know about. So then I say go to rule number 2, which is broaden your base of support and get more voices. Voices count. People don't realize how much power their voice has. The more voices there are, the more chances are of changing things. And then the last one is be persistent, and that's what I am. I think it comes from being a car salesman because nobody ever says, yes, I'll buy the car the first time they talk to them. But I sold cars for years, and I am persistent, and I think that has helped me achieve some of the things that I've achieved in politics. But rule number 1 is nothing makes sense because there's always a hidden agenda. They're saying it's not safe, but I bet that's not why they're closing it. I bet there's another reason. That's their public reason. I've suggested to Alana that she demand the engineering report that says it's unsafe, because I don't believe it will say it's unsafe. It may say it needs some work, or something. I quoted some numbers here a little while ago, and they were wrong. Okay, so earlier in this discussion, I quoted some numbers. I got my armories mixed up, but still, I don't think it's unsafe. I really don't. And I'd like to see the engineering report that says it is unsafe. I'd like to see the entire engineering report. The military, DND, Canada Lands would never reveal the report that says it's unsafe, even though they said it's unsafe, it's unsafe, it's unsafe. They would never reveal the report that actually said that. Never. Over 30 years, we've been trying to get those reports. They do one every 5 or 10 years, and then they can, it's not safe. But let's see the copy. No, can't show it to you. It's confidential.
Now, the current situation is there's no reference to the building structural integrity, more concern about mold. And of course, from a health perspective, that is an immediate unsafe situation. But it could be fixed. We know that. You know that. You talk about it needing add to your voice. So in other words, get support of the public behind you, and that begs a kind of letter writing campaign. And I'm reminded by a former member of Parliament back in your vintage of MP from southern part of the province, and talked about how you could actually photocopy 1,000 letters. So in other words, write one letter and photocopy it 1,000 times, giving it to 1,000 different people to send in to the member of Parliament. And I said, well, obviously it's the same letter over and over. He said, yes, but it's 1,000 people who sent it. So it's not what you say. It's the fact that you take the time and the trouble to make your comment known.
Well, in my opinion, those do not have the impact that an actual letter has, that somebody took the time to write the letter. I mean, you can set up a card table at the mall and say, ask people to sign these letters, and they'll sign them. But I think if people take the time to write a letter and say, this is a part of Cumberland heritage, it's a memorial to our soldiers, it's even recognized by the Germans, of all things, but not the Canadians. Anyway, voices count, but it's important that they be individual voices and not something that's organized and just, I don't agree with the form letters being signed like you just described. Maybe it's probably better than nothing, but I think it's better.
Well, my point wasn't to suggest it's a good thing to do. It was simply to say that a member of Parliament said it still represents 1,000 people. But you're right.
Does.
But here's my question. We could have supported you during your time, Lenore Zan during hers, Armstrong's period, the doctor's period. We could have supported you with letters then too. But writing to Alana when she's already on our side, so to speak, I think what we really need is for somebody, and that might be you, to do a little research to find out who is it at Canada Lands or the Department of National Defence, who is it we should direct those letters to, and then support the Member of Parliament in going directly to the one who's stirring the pot.
I believe, I don't think it'll make any headway with officials. I think it's got to be a political decision because this is a people issue. This is a people issue. It's heritage. It's history. It's a memorial to soldiers. I mean, when I grew up, I remember soldiers that had just come back from the war, and some of them were in such bad shape, and a lot of them even took their own lives. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember hearing about this. And no, it's a people issue, and so I think politics is people. I think it has to go to the. If you were to ask me who to send a letter to, I say send it to the Minister of Defense, who is Anita Anand, a great person, one that's a caring person, somebody that will pay attention to the letters. But I'd say if people wrote to Anita Anand and sent copies to Alana, or vice versa, it would have the most impact. But this is a people issue, and that's the only way I've ever been able to get the demolition stalled or the closure stalled, and we did it over and over and over. And we did it. I don't know how many times, but the people spoke up, and the people saved the armory. If the people hadn't spoken up 20 years ago, it would just be a vacant lot right now because they were going to demolish the building. And the armory doesn't care. They don't. I don't know how they can not care about the 486 soldiers who were trained in that building, went overseas, and never came back.
Well,
I mean, how can they not care about them?
You're preaching to the choir. I'm an Army brat. My mother and father were both in the Army during the wartime. In fact, they met in the Army. They married in the Army. The only wedding photos we have of my mother and father are in uniform. So you're talking to the choir here, and I'm just as emotional about this as well. That we need to do something about it. And I quite agree with you. If we all write an individual letter, send it to Alana, care of the minister, or as you said, vice versa, and let them take that to the ones who are pushing the button on this one. If they want to be done with the building, I say, great. We don't want you around anymore because you don't care about the building.
No.
Give it to the town, or give it to the proponents who are talking about a housing complex that would provide houses for veterans, for people who need affordable housing, and still providing space for the cadets and for the museum, and keeping the historical site alive and well in Amherst. If you don't want it, that's fine. Give it to us now rather than kick us out.
Well, the plan is super because the plan is been proposed by Vets Canada. They have operations right across the country. It started in Halifax by a young man from Spring Hill, who was a veteran. He suffered PTSD, and he started helping veterans on the streets in Halifax. And pretty soon he had more than he could handle. He got more other people involved, and Vets Canada. He created Vets Canada, and now it's right across the country in every single province. And they just help vets. That's all they do is help vets who are homeless, who need hearing aids, or need training on how to make meals, or just survive. And it's just an absolutely incredible story. It's Jim Lather, and from Spring Hill, started this whole process. He lived in Amherst for a while too, but now he wants his organization to take over the armories. And there's another proponent too, but this is the one that probably is further along. He's got architectural drawings, and it's not only provide housing for veterans, but it's to provide training on how to live, how to cook, how to take care of themselves, how to look after their issues. I mean, so many have PTSD after they come back from incredible sites of military action. And anyway, it's a great plan. I hope it can come together, and the town is behind it. They've been so good. The town's met with them several times, and they've got architectural drawings, as I said, drafted up, and they look really good. Anyway, but there's a long way to go, and now the military or DND or whoever it is, I don't know. Last I heard, it had been turned over to Canada Lands. I don't know if that's who. I haven't seen the official announcement that it's closed. I've just seen the mentions on the internet that it's closed, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, it's a good call to action for all of us to get off our butts and try to get something done with the armories.
Absolutely. And once again, really appreciate the fact that you made yourself available today, because you are in the know and it's not news to you, and you have a pipeline to the current Member of Parliament. You also, I know, and you can deny it all you want, but I know you have the ear of the Prime Minister. So you are not without some clout, sir, and we want to lean on you. And more than that, I want to talk to you again as this issue winds its way through the community.
No problem. I'm glad to talk to you, but you're highly overrating my my influence. But I'm very hopeful that Mr. Carney is going to be successful in dealing with Mr. Trump and making Canada what it should be. We've never achieved our potential. We never have. Canada's got more water. We got more trees. We got more waterfalls for power to generate power. We got more minerals. We got more deep water ports. We got more natural resources. We got more oil. We got more gas. We got more minerals. We got more stuff than any country in the whole world.
Like I said, I wish you wouldn't hold back. I wish you'd let it. You're moving us into another topic, and a very good reason for you and I to set a time to come back and do this again and talk about the new Canada, the potential Canada. I'd love to do that with you, and let's set a date and we'll go do it.
All right. Well,
Thanks again for
you
today.
know me. I like to talk. So okay.
I couldn't tell. I couldn't see that.
All right.
Always a pleasure, Bill.
Tell
But
everybody, write a letter to Anita Anand. You don't have to stamp it or anything. Just write to Anita Anand, Minister of Defense, House of Commons, Ottawa. That's all you got to do. You don't have to stamp it or anything. It will go to Anita Anand, the Minister of Defense, and say that the armories is critical to our community. It's critical to our history. It's critical as a piece of Canadian history, and it has aspects that there are nowhere else.